Today I'm going to speak to you on genetically modified foods. What do tomatoes, soybean, and French fries have in common? These are some of the most commonly genetically modified foods available in today's market. By using the genetic makeup of one organism and inserting it or modifying it into another, scientists can make food crops that maintain their freshness, grow larger, and create their own resistance to pesticides and diseases. Nevertheless, the technology to modify genes has surpassed its practicality. Genetically modified foods need to be removed from everyday agriculture due to the risks that they pose to our health, the environment, and the global economy. Genetically modified foods could produce new toxic substances and allergens. A gene from a Brazil nut was inserted into the DNA of a soybean plant to increase the nutritional value. However, this particular gene in this genetically modified soybean also produced an allergen, which is a substance that causes an allergic reaction in some people. Fortunately, the plant was not put into production. Another example of genetically modified food is a tomato called the flavor saver. The tomato is tastier and more durable than commercial tomatoes on the market. By combining conventional tomato genes with the genes of an Arctic trout produces the flavor saver tomato. Nevertheless, questions arise such as, will people who have an allergy to seafood be able to consume the tomato? And will the trout genes in the tomato enable new bacteria growth and thereby making the tomato a hazard to human beings? This causes the flavor saver to be a potential hazard to human health. Since technology is new with regards to genetics, there's no real way of knowing what negative impacts genetically modified food is having on human beings today. Two examples of diseases that have been created by genetically modified crops are glufosinate, which is linked to birth defects in mammals, and glyphosate, which is now linked to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It is evident that our children are now the guinea pigs and the lab rats for genetically modified food, and current therapy and drugs may not be able to reverse the adverse effects that this type of agriculture has on humans. If one is to ask the average North American if the product that he or she is eating contains a genetically modified food, most likely he will receive a blank stare. Because regulations of genetically modified food in North America is relatively relaxed, since the manufacturer is not required to label their products as being genetically modified. This makes the consumer ignorant to buying genetically modified food at the supermarket. Most have no idea what is going into their grocery carts. Agriculture and technology are both heavily invested in the United States, and profit is the most important driving force behind the development of genetically modified foods. And agricultural exports make up a large portion of agriculture in the United States. So since the demand for food is always increasing, and the demand to produce more food at a faster rate and a cheaper cost requires the need for better biotechnology to be put into practice. Because of the slack laws that are in effect in the United States and Canada, North Americans are still in the dark with regards to what they're eating. Most Americans are not educated about the risk that genetically modified food poses, nor are they aware of where they can even go to find information regarding how much genetically modified food is placed in their grocery baskets. This poses a serious threat to the potential health of North Americans, as we are nothing but lab rats waiting for the first abnormal twitch. Human health should be seen as the greatest aspect when considering the manufacturing of genetically modified food. People are not aware of the diseases and viruses that have been discovered through the implementation of genetically modified food, not to mention the potential for the biodiversity to decrease because of the gene transfers from one species to another. In addition, an additional way for the biodiversity to decrease is by farmers planting only one variety of species, thus reducing the gene pool. North Americans are the least aware of genetically modified food, and our governments have not yet educated the citizens on the risk of the genetically modified food products. There are too many risks involved in the use of genetically modified food, and its removal from the agricultural and biotechnical industries will benefit human health, the environment, and the global economy. But how can we prevent genetically modified food from entering our food supply? The first thing that you and I can do to prevent genetically modified food from ending up on our dinner plates is, number one, we need to familiarize ourselves with the most common genetically modified foods. Things such as soybeans, rice, canola oil, corn, and farm-raised salmon. Next, we need to only purchase foods that are labeled 100% organic, because by law, genetically modified food cannot be considered organic. Then we need to recognize and know how to read the fresh fruit and vegetable POU numbers. If the POU number is 5 digits and begins with the number 8, then chances are it is genetically modified. If it begins with the number 5, chances are it is a traditional agricultural product. And like the plum on this slide here, if it begins with the number 9, then it is certified organic and it is not genetically modified. Some other things that we can do to prevent genetically modified food from entering into our diets is to buy only 100% grass-fed beef, to seek products that are clearly labeled genetically modified free, to purchase whole foods, because the rule of thumb is the more a food is processed, the more likely it will contain genetically modified products. And to shop at local farmers markets or buy directly from farmers that we know do not grow genetically modified products. But the most rewarding and the most economical way to prevent genetically modified foods from entering into our food chain is to grow them ourselves. Many are surprised at what few feet of earth can produce. Genetically modified foods are becoming more and more prevalent in today's markets. But you and I must be vigilant to abstain from such products. These products may cause a plethora of birth defects and adverse health risks. Genetically modified food should be avoided at all costs for the sake of our lives and for the sake of our children. Thank you.